Well, hello, folks, and another day, another F1 car launch for 2021, and this time it's a biggie. The Red Bull RB16B has broken light, and Lawrence, is this the car that finally brings World Championship glory back to Milton Keynes?
Well, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, everyone at Milton Keynes will be hoping so, because it's been a lean few years for Red Bull. They've kept a lot of cards close to their chest with what they've revealed today. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, absolutely. As you've alluded to, a slightly different driver lineup for Red Bull. Lots to be excited about at Milton Keynes. And so to look into why they've changed that driver lineup and what went wrong last year, let's take a quick look back at where they find themselves after 2020. Now, Lawrence, this time last year, we were already, I think, in Barcelona, already at pre-season testing, and that Red Bull from the outset looked skittish. The drivers tried to make everybody think it was fine. They were just pushing the car to its limits. But by the time the heavily delayed season began, it was very clear very early on that there were inherent issues in RB16.
Yeah, I remember when you guys were talking about it on Tech Talk, you'd identified that the rear end of that car just didn't look very enjoyable for either Max or Alex at the time to be driving. And while I think it improved over the course of the year, particularly towards the end of the year, it was just generally speaking a difficult car to drive. And I think that obviously had a massive impact on Alex and his future. And Max is superhuman, really, isn't he? And he's got this ability to drive around a difficult car. I don't think there's many people on this planet who could do it. And he probably papered over a few cracks with that car and kind of flattered to deceive.
Yeah, Red Bull admitting recently that there were correlation issues for them between the wind tunnel and the car last year, accounting for some of the issues they had and why upgrade packages coming to the track took so long to dial in, because the numbers weren't being reflected in reality. As you say, that said, Max Verstappen still able to mount a challenge, but Red Bull doing what they seemingly have done, for a lot of seasons of late, which is start very much on the back foot and have to develop and really come on strong at the end of the year.
I mean, they've shown that they can do the development rate. They can have that high trajectory. The key thing, like you said, Will, is that they need to start strongly. And I can't remember a season now when they've hit the ground running from the off. These regulations should, in theory, offer them that opportunity, because while there are changes to the aero surfaces and you can make limited changes to the car, there's a lot of stability here. And with Red Bull winning the final race of the season, looking particularly strong in Mercedes' backyard in Abu Dhabi, really, if they can't hit the ground running this year, I'm not sure what they need to do.
Well, let's have a look at what they do need to do in 2021. So, Lawrence, into 2021, and one of the biggest changes, of course, is in the driver lineup. Red Bull choosing for the first time, I think, since they signed Mark Webber, that they've opted for a driver that wasn't in the Red Bull program at the time that they signed him. It's a big departure for them.
It shows where Red Bull are as a brand and as a racing team in Formula One, that they've been forced to look outside the driver pool. There wasn't that depth that they needed to promote through their sister team and into the works team. But you know what? It could be a blessing in disguise. We've talked a lot last year in weekend warm up about how strong Sergio Perez is as a driver. How he's driving better than ever, really. And so for them to be kind of forced into this opportunity, it could maybe show them that, putting a driver of that capability in the car might mean that they can really genuinely contend, say, for the Constructors' Championship.
It's astonishing, isn't it? You look back at last year, and when you uncover and unfurl everything, and you realize that Helmut Marko was the one that tried to convince Seb to take a sabbatical because they wanted to try and sign him back to Red Bull Racing for 2022. He ended up getting the gig at Aston Martin, which meant that Sergio was without a seat. And now Sergio's in at Red Bull with this car, which potentially has the opportunity, we hope, to fight for the World Championship.
It's funny how things can change so quickly, but how things work themselves out. I think Red Bull probably didn't envisage that they were going to be needing to look outside the pool. I think they had that faith in Alex. I know I talked about it a lot last year, that genuinely they wanted him to be good enough to deliver, and ultimately he wasn't, or he didn't meet their metrics. So it is interesting that they've ended up with Sergio in the car, and I can't wait to see what he can do.
So new driver lineup. We know how good Max is. We know how good Sergio is. How good the Honda engine in the back of that car is, though, will be, the big question mark. Of course, we look at Austria last year, first race of the season, engine problems for Max Verstappen. In that, part of them hitting the ground running has got to be that this Honda engine is up to the level of that Mercedes.
And this can go one of two ways, because of course Honda have brought forward their 22 engine to 2021. So we don't know what compromises, if any, they've had to make in terms of accelerating that process, accelerating that development curve. Will that be a good thing? Will it be a bad thing? If things go well, they'll hopefully get a boost in performance. They'll get a boost in reliability. And it could be a really, really strong point for them, because Honda weren't too far off Mercedes in terms of pure power last year. And so if they can make another step again, that's kind of what Red Bull have been lacking. That's why they partnered Honda in the first place. They want to compete both on the chassis side and on the engine side.
You talk about the chassis side of things. It was the launch today, so let's have a little look at what we learned from the RB16B's launch. Now, Lawrence, Red Bull themselves actually went for a pretty low-key launch for them, just releasing a short video and some images to the press. The press release headline, same, but different. A well-known meme, GIF, whatever. But the ending of that is same, but different. But still same. Is the RB16B still same?
It's a good question. I think we're going to need to wait till testing and the first race to see, because Red Bull are always quite clever in that they don't put a lot of their new bits on their car until the last minute. Last year, they bunged all of their new bits on the last day of testing, I think. And so I'm not surprised that when we're trying to do this kind of comparison of images, it's very difficult to see differences. There are slight differences, nuances all around the car. And you would have thought a team of that capability with the resource that they've got, there are going to be significant changes somewhere. It's quite tricky because they never change their livery all that much. And the style of their livery means they can hide a lot of what they've got in the car in the way that they shoot those images in the studio. So they're essentially keeping us waiting on 10 Turks for just a little bit longer.
Yeah, the shots are really interesting. Certainly the front perspective. I'm not convinced that Tomo hasn't just sort of gone either one step up or one step down on the step ladder for the shot, because although it looks similar, there's a slight difference in the angle of the shot, so it's really difficult to tell on that nose whether it's the same or different, as we were talking about before we recorded this, whether it's slightly thinner or not. It's very, very hard to tell the nuances and the differences. I think one area that is very different, and if they're showing us this already, imagine what the final version is going to be like. Of course, it's the barge board area. It's one of those key points on all the cars, but they've really, really gone to town there.
Yes, and I think that's the least that we probably can expect. And I guess it is worrying, for their rivals, that if, as you say, they're comfortable with showing that kind of area in the detail and they're on this early imagery, they must be pretty confident about not only the performance of those parts, but what they've got to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So can't tell that much from looking at the car, but we do know where the team's inherent strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that's the next thing that we need to talk about. They're well known, and I guess we've spoken about them a little bit already, the weaknesses that the team has. They've got to hit the ground running, haven't they, this year?
Yeah, I mean, Christian Horner's talked a lot over the last few years about the changes that they've made over the winter to try and get that strong start, and it hasn't quite worked out. And you mentioned the correlation issues that they discovered. So we're going to have to hope, or Red Bull fans, we're going to have to hope that they've got on top of those. But they've had correlation issues before. And so I guess that what they've got to hope for is they've made the changes in the wind tunnel that when they hit the ground running in testing, the data correlates as they hope for. It's got to be a better start to the year. I remember last year when we were talking about the season, it was Austria, Hungary, and there was 3 circuits that really Max Verstappen should have won and could have won, and they just weren't able to do that. I remember we were talking about what difference that could have had on the championship, the outlook, the feeling, the pressure on Lewis Hamilton. And it just didn't materialize. So I guess for them, they've just got to hit the ground running this year and really be strong straight out of the box.
The other weakness we could say that they have had is, I guess, that sort of, as we've often referred to it, the sword of Damocles hanging over the second driver. Sergio doesn't have that. He is independent of the Red Bull program, independent of Helmut Marko's wrath, and could be freed up to give the team what it needs, which is a 2-pronged attack on the World Championship, plus a strong, we hope, final iteration of the Honda engine, a development on a car that they knew ended last season strongly. Do the strengths outweigh the weaknesses?
I think so. I think Checo could end up being the magic card for them, because he's got nothing to lose. Like you said, he's not under pressure from the Red Bull family, and particularly Marco, to deliver. He just wants to deliver for himself and to see if he can prove that if he's given a top car, he can deliver in it. And
Absolutely.
I think that releasing that pressure will be key, and also it will be interesting to see what impact that has on Max. If Checo performs strongly, is that going to push Max on? Is that going to maybe make Max make more mistakes? I think that dynamic's going to be really interesting this year. But I would agree that overall, with the stability and the regulations, you mentioned the engine and their chassis prowess, I think that their strengths definitely outweigh their weaknesses.
Well, I think it sounds like only one thing is going to be good enough in 2021, but let's get on to talking about that. What will be a good season for Red Bull this year? So, Lawrence, I think this is going to be an easy one. 2021 for Red Bull Racing. It's the championship or nothing, isn't it?
Completely. That's what they've been pushing for since they last won the title in 2013. And in reality, they haven't really come that close to really pushing Mercedes for either accolade, the drivers or the constructors. I think for them, a good year will be winning one of those. I think anything less than that's just going to be another disappointment for Dietrich Mateschitz.
If it was to be either rather than both, which one do we think they would prefer, the drivers or the constructors? And the reason I ask is that the drivers' championship is the one that gets the more column inches, it gets the more press around the world. But from Red Bull's perspective, would they prefer to have the team's title?
To be honest, I don't think they'll care. I think they'll just want one, just to bring a trophy back to Red Bull. I think Red Bull's slightly different to other teams in that they obviously back athletes. What they do is support athletes through their careers. So I guess it's still quite a big thing for them, more so than other teams, to win the Drivers' Championship. But I think you're completely right that the Constructors' Championship, and that's the team effort element, I think would be more impressive. And I think in reality, it's probably more likely now they've got Checo in that second car, because if he does what we've seen that he can do in a midfield car, and that score consistently, and then take advantage of a result if Max can't compete at the front, for example, and that's me suggesting that Checo is probably not going to be beating Max overall. I think that that's what Red Bull need. They need him to do that, and I can't see why he wouldn't.
Have they got the strongest lineup in the sport? Would you say if Mercedes and Red Bull bring two cars to the offing that are on a par with one another, would you say Red Bull have a stronger driver lineup than Mercedes right now, in terms of both drivers being able to do the job on a Sunday afternoon, or is it too close to call?
Oh, it's close. It's so close.
It is, isn't it?
What's difficult is because we still haven't really seen what Checo can do in a top car. We've seen other drivers when they've stepped up, and I know it's slightly different, but say Giancarlo Fisichella going from Force India to Ferrari, it's not as easy as just jumping in a car and being fast, even though you're a pretty handy racing driver. So I guess it's too early to call that, but we can only base this on what we've seen Checo do so far, and he's been strong in all the machinery that he's had. So there's no reason to think that he won't be again this year. So I think it's too close to call, which is exciting though, I think, for the championship.
It's great, isn't it? And makes us, really hunger for that first day of testing to see what that RB16B really is going to look like, and how well it's going to run. Lawrence, thank you so much, mate, for obviously your insights as ever on this car. Whether we've seen the full extent of it or not, cannot wait to see what Red Bull bring to the party in 2021. I'll see you at the next launch, mate.
Sounds good.
But for now, from Lawrence, from me, folks, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.